Hey guys, we're gonna shoot a quick little training video here about how we plant a tree. We got some large 2.5 to 3 inch trees here, sycamores. These are a little bit larger than our standard tree is, but we're going to demonstrate how we plant something like this. We got Colin here getting the auger attached to his skid loader. We're working along 80-35 here today. Busy road. We pulled off the road. It was dry enough in order to get a nice spot to unload and get out of the way. If we were on the side of the road, we'd have our cones out, right? So we got just 3 left over here that we're gonna take care of. As you can see, we got some flags out over here where these trees are gonna go. 1, 2, and there's 3. In this case, the DOT flagged them for us. On most jobs, we'll flag them ourselves. So he got his hydraulics hooked up, coming over to auger. First thing we're gonna look for when we auger, all right, are there any utilities? Are there any utilities in the way, right? In this case, no, we're kind of in the middle of nowhere. No utilities to worry about.
Guys, it's always important that we stay at least 20 inches from utilities on either side. Also note that water, which is a blue marking, sewer, which is green markings, are typically 42 inches or greater underground. Those are only utilities we need to worry about if we are digging that deep. Also, please note that sometimes hand digging trees is required if we're not in a location where we can move the tree, either due to it, being in a constrained area or needs to be in a straight line with some other trees. We may need to hand dig trees if that is the case.
Collins going into auger here. Dakota and Jose are staying productive. They're laying out their T-posts that they'll put in once he's got these augered, right?
Staying productive is one of the most important things you can do as a field crew member. It's always important to be thinking about the next move you can make to keep the job moving forward and staying productive. This is always noticed by your supervisors.
Colin knows roughly where on this auger bit the height of the tree is. Sometimes you got trees with big root balls, sometimes with small root balls. In this case, these trees got a nice big root ball, so he's gonna go a little deeper. If we're planting smaller 1.5 or 2 inch trees, he won't go quite as deep. They're staying productive. They got their fabric pre-cut, right? These jobs use 4 foot or 6 foot by 6 foot 6 foot by 6 foot sections of fabric. This is a DOT spec. Not every job is like this. Some jobs will just use a mulch ring. These jobs have fabric and a mulch ring. Right? Got his fabric over here. So you can see he lifts up and cleans out his auger bit every once in a while. Now he's gonna go back for one last pass and make sure this hole is clean. Right? We're working around the skid loader. We're staying clear of the machine, not getting in the operator's way. All right. Just gonna shake it off. Right, so we got our posts, got our fabric, we got our hose for staking our tree. All right, here we have Dakota. He's staying productive. He's getting these trees untied. These trees are tied up for transportation. And it's important that we untie them before we put them in the ground, because if we don't, it takes quite the ladder to climb up and untie them. So once we untie them, sometimes these branches stick together a little bit. So we want to go into, make sure all the branches aren't tied up on each other, right? And we're gonna pull these branches apart.
Now we're gonna show you a quick clip about how we use the handle of our shovel to measure how deep our hole for our tree needs to be.
How deep we want the root ball to go in the ground, so about right there to here.
So in this case too, our root flare is right at the top of the root ball. Sometimes this is buried a little bit, and your hole will actually need to be a little bit shallower than the height of the root ball. We always want to err on the side of shallow rather than deep, right? We don't want to plant our trees too deep, or else they drown.
The root flare is where the trunk of the tree transitions into the horizontal roots. It's important that this is at or above grade. It shouldn't be so high that there are roots sticking out of the ground, but it's important that the root flare is up above ground and exposed. If it's underground, the tree will be too wet and die. This is especially important on conifer or evergreen trees and many varieties of oaks. These are especially susceptible to being too wet. On occasion, the root flare will be buried in the top portion of the balled and burlap root ball, and you'll have to scrape an inch or two of dirt off the top of the root ball.
So now Dakota's got his fingers wrapped around the shovel. Yep.
And then
Now he's gonna go check his holes. Colin right here, now that he's done augering his holes, he's gonna unhook his attachment and he's gonna hook his forks back up so we can move these trees. For the most part, all of a certain tree size is gonna have roughly the same depth. So this is a little deep, isn't it?
yeah, it's a little bit deep.
All right, so it's important too, when we are checking grade, we're not comparing grade to the top of this. We're gonna compare our grade.
The grade is like right here.
The grade is a little lower. The grade is the actual height of where this was before we dug the hole, right? So we want to check our fingers on our shovel to here. Why don't you show us again? Show us the hole depth again, right?
So the whole depth is basically
Right. We're gonna check it there. So we're gonna fill a little in here. So Dakota's filled some of this hole in here. He's packing the dirt down in the bottom of the hole because we don't want our tree to settle and be too low after it's planted. So if you're adding a lot of dirt, you may have to do it in a couple lifts.
It's always better to err on the side of planting too high rather than too low. I'm going to split to a different clip here of planting a slightly smaller tree on a different location. This is more typical of a normal tree planting, where the tree is left beside the hole and the hole is already dug, and then you will fill in the hole or dig it out to get the proper depth and then actually roll the tree into the hole instead of placing it with a machine. This is more typical. On this project, he's going to remove roughly the top third of the burlap. On occasion, we will remove all the burlap, but not typically. He is also going to bend down the ears of the wire cage as far as he can. It is best just to kick a little bit of dirt in the hole to make sure you can get the tree straight. Make sure your tree is perfectly straight before you start backfilling the rest of the dirt. See how he packs the dirt down into the hole as he goes instead of filling the whole thing up and doing it at once. It's important to do this in lifts to make sure that the soil around the tree does not settle. Notice how the root flare of the tree is well above grade. As you can see here, the root flare is at a proper elevation. Typically, we will remove all ribbon from the tree, but leave the small plastic tag that has the name of the species on the tree.
All right, so right now it's pretty early spring, so we're not necessarily gonna be watering these in right away, as the root ball in the tree is pretty moist, and our soil around it here is pretty moist as well. So now we got her filled in. Now you see how much my foot sinks there. We need to go all the way around the perimeter of this tree and make sure our backfill soil is packed in. This is important because if we don't, it'll settle and it'll just kind of look goofy because there'll be a low area around the tree. So now these guys we don't want to leave too many bad chunks. They're getting everything kind of leveled out as best they can.
When it's hotter and or dry out, it is important that we get our trees watered in right away. In early spring or late fall, when the soil is moist, this isn't necessarily as important. Watering our trees in also helps settle out any voids in our backfill area.
All right, now we got our tree in straight. We got all our dirt spread out around it. In this case, we're working in existing turf. We're not trying to make too much of a mess. All right, so we got this smoothed out as flat as we can get it. All right, now, also on 95% of our jobs, we'll stake our trees. All right, as Jose puts this in the ground, we want to make sure this tree is outside, this post is outside of the hole we dug. We want to be putting this post into virgin ground and not into ground we backfilled around the tree. Jose is out about 2 foot. That's about the right distance that you need to be on something like this. So Jose's gonna go ahead and pound both these posts in the ground. All right, so when Jose pounds this in the ground, he wants to make sure that this kick plate is completely underground. So this post is gonna be pounded at least a foot deep.
Notice how he interlocks the two opposing wire strands with each other. If you are staking a tree that does not have any low-hanging branches that you can put your wires above, it is important that your ties go straight across so they are not able to fall down.
All right, now this tree's done. Jose's gonna pick up his trash. On these DOT jobs, we have this fabric that goes down and we'll come back later to mulch it. On most of our jobs, there will be a mulch ring around this tree with about 2 bags of mulch. We're gonna do a separate video on that because that's not something we're doing on this project. But essentially we will evenly put that mulch around the tree. There'll be a little berm, and we do not want mulch piled up against the trunk.
This sycamore tree would be an example of one that doesn't have low-hanging branches to hook your wires around. We also probably have too much angle on these ties. They should be more straight across and not up at an angle like they are in this video. We all make mistakes.
Hey guys, I just want to do a quick video on what I would call probably about a perfect tree planting and some things we look for. So, as you can see, we got our nice mulch ring. It's bermed up on the outside, lower in the middle, nothing piled up against the trunk. You can see we have our root flare exposed. That's really important to have on all our tree plantings. Additionally, our staking wires, they're perfectly horizontal, parallel to the ground. They go straight across. They're plenty tight, and our hose is tight against the tree. We don't want the wire digging into the trunk of the tree. And I'm going to show you something where, you know, we always want to put it above this first branch if we can. I'm going to show you another one where if we can't do that, how we link these two pieces together.
Guys, one last thing I want to reiterate here before I end this video is extremely important that when we're unloading and moving trees, we do not let the trunk of the tree scrape the forks of the skid loader or anywhere else. When you scrape the bark off, it allows disease to potentially enter that tree, as well as it's something architects look for and could potentially reject that tree. So that's something that we need to be extremely careful with. It's also important that when placing trees, we make sure we're putting the right trees in the right location for their species. It's a lot easier to plant it in the right place the first time than have to plant the same tree twice.